today too. So
Okay. Awesome.
I love it. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Sarah Centrella Show. I am excited for this conversation today because I was on Samantha Peters' podcast a couple weeks ago, and we just had the best conversation. We connected just so well. I'm going to put a link to that episode here in the show notes. That when we were done, I was like, oh my God, I have to have you in mind. We have to continue this conversation. Samantha is the host of the top 1% podcast, Light Up Your Life. You have to go listen and subscribe and all the things. She is an author. She's super passionate about teaching women how to build confidence and how to heal, and all the fun things. We're going to get into all that. Welcome to the show, Samantha. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to continue the conversation. Like you mentioned before, when you were a guest on my show, we had the best topics of conversation. So excited to
Right?
dive in today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And you are a total manifester as well. You believe in manifesting, so we're going to get into that also. But one of the things that I'd love to do on the show is share a little background so everybody can get to know you a little bit. And I think a lot of times we see the output of where someone is, the success that they've built, and we forget that not everyone was born that way, right? We don't wake up that way every single
Mhm.
day. There was a process that got us to this point. And your story, I think, is really powerful. And I'm wondering if you'd like to share a little bit about your background and your story of what you went through to be able to get to the place where you're now helping so many women.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I always wish you could just fast forward to the success, like you said, but your character is built in the moments and the challenges that you go through and you grow through them. And so I grew up in a very toxic environment. Both of my parents were on Social Security disability. My father was very abusive, mostly mentally, but sometimes physically. And because he didn't heal the trauma and the pain that he went through, he just projected it onto us. And so it was a very unstable household growing up. And my mother just was very passive. And so he would always make her choose between us or him. And it was always masking what happened at our house. We had to pretend like everything was perfect when we would go to our grandparents' house or anywhere. And so I learned very early to people please and suppress everything that I was feeling. And I just remember my my bedroom being my safe place. And it was just kind of me dealing with those feelings and no one coming to help me really process them. And so growing up, it was really hard because I was very shy. I didn't want anyone to know what I was going through. I felt so much shame and embarrassment from where I grew up, and we didn't have a lot of money at all. My parents being on Social Security disability. So there were so many coping mechanisms and strategies that I used at the time that helped me. But in our adulthood, we know that's definitely not
Yeah.
going to fulfill us. But yeah, so that's kind of where I grew up. But I had to pretty much do everything on my own. I started working when I was 10 years old. I had a paper route. I was babysitting when I was 16. I started working in a bank. And then after high school, I went to college. I paid for everything. And so I didn't have any financial support whatsoever growing up. So everything that I have today is because I worked really hard for it. And it was so challenging.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, I relate to so much of what you just shared, and thank you so much for sharing that. I know it is not easy. What you've been through is traumatic and it leaves scars and it embeds all kinds of belief systems, and it takes a lot to overcome all of that. And I guess I'm curious at what point you started, having grown up in a very dysfunctional family myself, like very, very, that's putting it mildly, and also violence and mental abuse and things like that. It wasn't probably until my 20s that I really started realizing, I would say, what true dysfunction it was that I grew up in, right? Because you a lot of times only know what you know.
Mhm.
And when that light started kind of dawning on me, then I really started looking at, like, oh my gosh, what what is it that I can do about this? What can I change about this? And did you ever have a moment like that? I mean, you've done so much work to heal a lot of that. At what point I guess, did you start to really look and say like, hey, I don't want to repeat the patterns of my family. I want a different life for myself.
Yeah, I love that question. And I think it started in high school when I would be in gymnastics competitions. All of the people on my team, their parents would be there rooting them on, and I would be the only one that would look into the bleachers, and no one was there supporting me. And so I think it started there. And then in college, in my 20s, I started diving deep into personal development, reading just,
Yeah.
uh, I'm trying to
That
think of the name.
curiosity, the
Yeah,
curiosity of just saying like, hey, is there something I can do about any of this? Like,
yeah.
who am I? What do I want to be? Yeah.
Exactly. And I remember listening to Abraham Hicks,
Yeah.
and I think I was driving to Trader Joe's and she said something and it just stopped me in my tracks. She said, "You create your own reality." And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So this entire time, I mean, and also you have to think you've been almost brainwashed your entire life by
Totally.
your parents and the routines and the different behaviors. And so you're kind of mimicking how you grew up, and then to realize that, okay, I have complete control over everything in my life. And so that made me feel so empowered that I didn't have to be a victim and that I could become a victor of my circumstances. So I just started diving deep. And then, very similar to you, every single thought that would come up, I would stop it and I would say, okay,
Mm,
where did this belief come from? Is this even my belief that I'm carrying
that's a good
around?
question. Yeah.
And it wasn't. And
Yeah.
so, and another thing that will really help your audience is I started to say, okay, I have all these beliefs that are really negative. A lot of them came from my father. And I looked at my father, I'm like, do I want to become like him? Am I proud of the person he is? Is he highly respected? Is he making a difference in the world? Is he uplifting anyone? And the answer was no. And so, like, why are you going to take advice from someone that's not even going to be or
Right
you
where you want to be.
want exactly you
Yeah.
want to be. So that was a really pivotal revelation that I had as well.
I love that question because I think anyone can ask themselves just that simple question when you're getting feedback from anybody in your life, or when somebody is maybe being negative or they're trying to define you, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case is. If you just pause and ask yourself, hey, do I want to be them? Like, is this really a reflection? Should I be taking this advice? Should I be absorbing everything that they're saying and believing it to be true? And I think when it comes to our parents, a lot of times that is really hard because we're bred to believe what our parents teach us. And so to
Mm-hmm.
be able to separate yourself from that and say, wait a second, like this is not serving me. It is not who I want to be. When did you really start kind of seeing? I have your journal, by the way, and I'll put a link to it here for everybody because you did just this beautiful journal on how to heal childhood trauma. And I think
Thank
so
you.
many of us are walking around with childhood trauma of some sort or another, and it has to be healed. If it's not healed, we carry it into everything, and it does
Mhm.
block us. It does sabotage us. What was some of that work like when you started really wanting to heal some of those traumas and break some of the generational karmas?
Yeah, so I went back to those really deep, dark moments in my childhood and I rewrote what it looked like. I went back to those moments and I was basically the parent that I needed in that moment to say that it wasn't my fault. It's nothing that I did wrong. And so I use that as fuel as well to say, okay, this is, what I went through, but now I'm in this place where I've completely transformed. And so I think it's really giving it a new meaning. Yes, it was a difficult circumstance that I went through, but it only helped refine me and it gave me a set of skills that makes me so much more aware of people and their energy and their character. And I can pick up on things very, very fast now because of how cautious and I just basically had to realize the characteristics in the person that my father was in that moment. So very, very self-aware. And so how I can take those into my adulthood. But yeah, I was going back to those moments and rewriting them for a more positive belief. And now I look at my trauma and what I went through from such a different lens. I used to be so defensive. I would fight back and I would just try to win every conversation. And now I just take a step back and I pray for my family because they didn't have the strength to heal. And we all know that it takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of courage to go back to all the deep, dark moments. So that was one strategy that really helped me get through those dark moments and rewrite them for a more positive
I
moving
love
forward.
that. What is one other thing that you think really helped you either, I guess, heal them or let them go in a way, separate your identity from who
Yes.
that girl was, right? The girl who endured
Mm-hmm.
and to be the woman that you are today. What is like maybe one other thing that anyone can do to help them release something that
Mm-hmm.
they just know is they don't want to keep carrying it?
I love that. So for me, it's been meditating and journaling. So I
Mm,
would journal out everything. You want to get it down on paper, you want to get it out of your mind. And
yes.
then you could really look at it and say, okay, this is where I was at this moment. And then where do I want to be? So I incorporated a lot of meditation to quiet my mind, to really figure out what I needed to focus on. And then I, very similar to you, would journal out what I wanted my future to look like. I would go through every single aspect of my life. So whether it's friendships, personal relationships, whether it was fitness or what I'm eating, and I would write down everything that I wanted to become, and then I became that person. I started really adopting that identity and then acting as if I was that person. So it's really, I don't think, from my perspective, you could really manifest what you truly want in your life unless you go back to the trauma and you heal it, because you just have so many of those same scars and blocks that are blocking you from ultimately creating what you truly want in your life. So,
Yeah, I think that's such a good point because I know for me, I did so much of the work, and anyone who's
mhm,
ever really put in work to change their thoughts, to consciously visualize a future that doesn't currently exist, that is reframing their thoughts as they're happening. That's work, like plain and simple. It's a lot of intentional work, but I think I got to a certain point where I was manifesting a ton because all of that was brand new. And so how can you not? Whenever you change an equation to that level, you're gonna get some really fun, exciting new results, which I
mhm,
absolutely did the first probably 3 or 4 years that I was learning and practicing this stuff. But then I got to a certain point where I knew, I almost like intuitively knew that I could not break through to another level of success or the next level of what I wanted to manifest without addressing the past and my childhood traumas. It just like I could almost feel it in my body, if that makes sense. I didn't
mhm,
know exactly what it was. A lot of it I knew was probably subconscious programming, but without a doubt, it was sabotaging just on every level of now suddenly
mhm.
all the work wasn't working the way that it had in the beginning because it was bumping up against all of these subconscious beliefs that were the opposite of the work. So I was like fighting myself, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
realizing like, wow, okay, now I have to go deep. I have to ask myself the really tough questions. I have to do some subconscious work too, some subconscious healing. I've kind of done all of those things. I've done Reiki. I've done kind of all
Mhm,
of it
yes.
to heal from the inside out, if you will, to really get to a place where like, okay, I can absolutely leave that behind. I don't feel that weight anymore. Now I
Mhm,
can truly embody what I want next. And I love that you wrote down your visions and your dreams for your future too. I just cannot stress enough how important that is, and
yes.
how empowering it feels to like go back and read that.
I
When did
love
you
it.
start
Yeah.
noticing that like what you had written down was actually happening? Like, did you have a moment where you were just like, wait a second, this is actually working, this thing I'm doing?
Yes. And it's magical. Oh my God, there's so many different circumstances, but the one that really stands out to me, and when you're supposed to do something, you're going to be divinely guided to do it. And I just remember seeing, I know we have Ed Milet in common. I know
Yeah.
that you were on his podcast and I was on his
Yep.
TV show, and I just kept hearing this little voice tell me that I need to apply to be on his show. And I kept pushing it down. I'm like, oh, they're never going to choose me. Why would they choose me? And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to apply. So I sent in the video, and I just knew with such conviction. I started to rewrite what I was thinking. I'm like, you know what? They are going to choose me. And I would write it down every night. I'm so thankful and grateful now that I've been on Ed Milet's TV
Oh, I
show,
love
and
it.
they called me and it
I
happened. And
freaking love
so,
that so much.
yes, it's just having so much certainty and not having anything that is distracting you into believing something else.
Yeah.
And if you could think negatively your entire life, you can absolutely switch it to the positive. And I think there's a point in my life, and I'm sure with you, Sarah, too, where that negative ball of energy got overtaken by a positive ball. And so
Mhm.
you just start thinking in a more positive way all the time after you do the deep, deep inner
Yeah.
work.
Well, and I think you brought up a really good point that in the moment, number one, you noticed that you were thinking negatively. Like you heard, actually paid attention and heard the voice that was like, oh, they'll never pick me, whatever. A lot of people aren't aware enough of what's going on in their head to even hear that. It just feels like a truth, a reality, a
Yes.
normal day, whatever
Mhm.
you want to say. Like they don't have the ability to hear it as truly like an outside influence or as something that is impacting how they're showing up or impacting the energy that they put out or literally impacting the opportunities that do or don't come to them. So you turn on that awareness, heard it, and then we're like, wait a second, no, don't want that.
Mhm.
Here's what I want instead. I'm claiming what I want instead. I'm saying the words, I'm writing
Mhm.
it down, and then I'm going to tell myself that till I'm blue in the face until it happens. And that's the process right there.
That's the
That is
work.
the
Yep.
process. Like if you are listening and you haven't ever tried to do any of this is it. Like listen
Mhm.
to those thoughts that are going on in your head. Stop thinking that they are just you and just is what it is and start seeing them as outside influences trying to come in and influence your decisions. And then you can really see like, wait a second, no, thank you. I want this instead. And I love that.
Exactly.
That process is what works right there.
Yeah, and it's all just data collecting too. It's like, okay, what thoughts am I thinking today? And I always say cancel, cancel now. My mentor taught me to do that. And then also really asking the question too, it's like, why do we let other people who don't know who they are determine who we are? And
Amen.
we should have ultimate responsibility over who we are at all times. And so that just is a really powerful thing to ask yourself as well.
I love that so much. So I'm kind of guessing through your healing journey, you get
Mhm.
to a place where now you're starting to dream of a new life. You're starting to actually build it. You're starting to put those pieces in place and really stepping into that new version of you. Confidence comes into play somewhere along that spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Where did it come in for you? Like, where did maybe you notice that you needed more confidence or that you were lacking confidence or how to build it? How did confidence play a role in your success?
Yes, I love that question. I actually wrote an ebook too, and embracing your inner confidence. And so for me, it was just realizing that I had to do the work. There was a time, especially when I first started network marketing, where I felt like I had to gather all this information. I had to read this. I had to go to one more seminar and learn all of this. But the true fact of the matter is, you have to take one thing that you've learned and you have to implement it and you have to scale it. You have to see if it works. And so for me, building confidence is just keeping the promises that I would make to myself. If I said I was going to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning and go to the gym doing a morning routine, I actually did it, because then that creates self trust within you. And we all know we're mirrors. So if I can trust me, then everyone else is going to trust me around me. And so I think that was the biggest thing that really helped build my self confidence, was just keeping my word to myself and then having that bleed out into everything that I do.
Oh, I love that so, so much. That was one of my early realizations too when I started rebuilding my
Mhm.
life because I did not have that trust in myself. As a dreamer my whole life, I would always put these big dreams out there, but then had a really hard time following through with them. And so that
Mhm.
broke trust all the time. And I got to the place where I was like, well, I'm just a dreamer. I don't actually execute. I can't actually get anything done, or I'm a hot mess, or whatever all these labels were that I was putting on myself. And so I
Mhm.
realized early on, like, hey, if I can keep my promise to myself on the smallest little thing over and over and over again, then I can start to trust myself. And so I just
Mhm.
started like almost testing it out. I would do it on little things like if I open an email, I respond to the email. If I don't have time to respond to the email, I'm not going to open it yet. Just like little
Mhm.
things that I could test it out with and kind of build that confidence up with, or following through to get things turned in before a deadline or, without trying to rush it
Mhm.
to the end because I had been a procrastinator before that. So there's so many different ways, everyone, that you can test this out for yourself and build that, like you said, internal trust. Because once you can trust yourself, there's nothing you can't do because
I
you'll
love
also understand yourself. So you'll understand what your capacity is. So
that.
you're not going to say
Mhm.
yes to things you don't have capacity for because you will now understand what you can and can't do, what feels good, what doesn't feel good. When you can commit to something, you know that you'll follow through. So you're not overcommitting to everything under the sun, right?
Yes.
So it's just, it all kind of feeds this whole system where now if you are showing up for something, you're fully there and you know that you can
Mhm.
see it through to the end and you know you can be successful because you've layered in all of this proof and confidence that got you to
Exactly.
that point.
You're right. And it's small step, big priority. But two, especially when you're at this point, you can take really big risks because you always know you're going to be able to save yourself
Yeah.
because you show up for yourself. And so I talk to so many people and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared that I want to start my business and leave my 9 to 5 or whatever circumstance it is. But if you haven't built that internal trust, of course you're going to be scared
Right.
because you
100%.
can't even do the little things for yourself. So I think that was a really big realization that I had too. And I just think it starts with small daily habits and then you
Yeah.
can work your way up to the bigger things.
Was there anything else, or what do you teach women now on confidence building? Another tip or a tool that you found just as clutch that really works to build your confidence?
Yes, I think goal setting has been really big for me. So, looking at my really big vision, but then breaking that down into actionable steps. And so, I do this all the time. I have so many calendars. And so, I look at my month and I'm like, okay, what are the really big goals that I want to accomplish this month? Okay, let me break them down during the week. Then I break it down by the day and then I break it down by hour. But
Mhm.
one thing that's really helped me, and I do so many, it's 10 steps to manifest your goals, dreams, and desires. I've done this with like Inc. 5000 companies. I've done it with so many different workshops, but essentially write down every goal that you want to accomplish. And then you could use ChatGPT to do this. And you use the prompt, you just say, create a day in the life of someone who's manifested these goals or
Oh, I
completed
love
these
that.
goals.
Yeah,
Then
it's a
it's
good
going to
prompt.
come out with a manifesto that's like, you are already that person. This is what you would do every single day. And then you can take that and you can say, okay, now create a daily schedule of everything that I would need to do from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. to become that person. And so you have an entire outline and a
Oh,
blueprint that you can use to start achieving your goals. So it's really just getting clear on your vision and what you want. So many people have no idea what they want. So
yep.
I think it's important to sit with yourself and then really master the goal setting process and using that formula that I just explained to really help you.
I love that. Those are such good prompts for chat. It does a really good job of helping you translate what you probably already know, but there's something oddly kind of powerful when
Mhm.
it's coming back, sourcing other data to say,
Yes.
no, you're right. This is what you do and this is how you do it. And there's
Mhm.
just something about it that feels like, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
a crazy thing and it probably sounds silly, but it does work and it really does help you to see, oh, this is not only possible, here's the route to the possibility. Like here's how I get there.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
steps. There's an absolute process that I can do each day that gets me one step closer to that. And not only that, I think the reminder that each day that you're getting one step closer is living the dream. I think
It
a lot of people
is.
forget that, right?
Yes.
They
You're
think
right.
like I have to have the full entire future board manifested before I've lived any part of my dream. No, it's every single day that you are
Mhm.
acting as if, as they say, right? Like I am
Yes.
embodying who I want to be. I'm
Mhm.
actually myself going through one of those transitions right now at the beginning of the year. I spent last year releasing all the things, you're the snake, releasing everything.
Yes.
It was totally a release rush
Hmm.
ride there. But then at the beginning of the year, I just sat down. I was like, this is who I have wanted to be for a long time. I've had all these reasons why I wasn't ready. I let those go. Now, this is who I am going to embody and become starting today before all of this happens. And part of it was I totally wanted a makeover for lack of a better word, right? Like I was just like, I want an update on how I present myself, on how I look, on how I feel. Because when I'm out giving 2, 3 speeches a week and my schedule is madness, I don't want to be like, maybe I should do my eye makeup different and I don't know how. No, all that shit has to be clockwork. It has to
Yeah.
be like the outfits have
Hmm.
to be perfect. You know what I mean? So I am literally every single day, just like today, dressed head to toe. I have freaking heels on. Yes, in my home
Oh,
office, I have heels on. I'm like every single piece of what would need to be in place
hmm.
when my ultimate dream is realized needs to be in place today. And I'm going to embody it starting today.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's so many different versions and different ways that you can do that. But I think it's a big piece of that because I have to get comfortable with all of those components now so that they don't block me, when I'm living the ultimate version. So each of these versions are part of living the dream. The transformation of getting up and doing my own makeup and my own hair is part of what it'll be on all the days when I don't have to do it and someone else does it for me.
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Yeah, you have to dress the part. You have to dress for success. And when you look good, you feel good. And it just
1,000%.
brings your energy up so high. So, yes, I'm in my home
Yep.
office too, and I'm wearing an entire
All
dress,
dressed.
like all
Yep.
cramped
I
up.
love it. I love it.
Yes.
It makes such a big difference on if you
Mhm.
are really ready to say, hey, this dream isn't just fantasy. It isn't just like, what if this would be nice? It's like, no, I'm bringing it into today. And what are all the different ways that I could bring it into today? So when did you start manifesting? When did that start happening for you? And how did you kind of come across the power of manifesting for your own life?
Yes. Oh my gosh, such a great question. So I do have a manifestation journal out there too, and I published it, I think, 3 years ago at this point, but I would write everything down. So I would say for the past like 8 or 9 years, I've been doing this Jim Rohn workshop, and it's goal setting, and it would happen every January 1st. And I know you can rewrite your life at any time, but this
Yeah.
is how I started. And I would write down my 1 year goals all the way to 10-year goals. And then we would circle which ones that we wanted to do within the year. And then we would write a why behind it. And then I would look back a few months later and I'd just be checking these things off. And I'm like, no way. But the biggest thing that's helped me, and I have this as a journal prompt, and it says, journal, like close your eyes and imagine her journal as if it already happened. So think of all of the things that you want to manifest and write it like it already happened. And then the biggest part is feeling the feelings, because your mind doesn't know the difference between reality or what you tell it. And so if you keep thinking it, if you keep rehearsing it, if you keep reading your manifesto every day and feeling it, it's just going to attract to you. And you just
Yeah.
have to have no resistance. And so I've been manifesting for a while now, and so many amazing things. And I think the hard part for me now, and I'm curious to know if you feel this way, is I'm blissfully dissatisfied. So I am so, so grateful for everything I was able to accomplish, my circumstances of where I came and where I am now, but it's like I always want more. And I'm like, when is it going to be
Yeah.
enough? And
Yeah.
so having a gratitude practice has really grounded me. But I think that's what keeps the
Yeah.
fire inside too.
Yeah. I think for me, I always teach everyone to redo all of their work, like their future board and writing their life plan story
Mhm.
and goals and all of that every year so that we're actually always moving forward. And
Mhm.
I found that to be like super important because in the beginning when I wasn't, I remember probably 18 months after I'd done my first future board, most of it came true. And I was just like freaking head spinning. I mean, so much in my life had changed in that period of time that I didn't even know what was up and what was down. And so it took me a while before I did the next one. And in that while was this kind of like, yeah, this was really cool a couple months ago when it was the first time this had happened, and like now what? And you kind of get in this little like sluggish zone, or not quite as fired up as you were in the beginning. And so doing it every year, I do it more often. I write my story often because I'm like you. I've written it twice this week alone. Like I try to really dig in as much as I possibly can because I know that that's one of the fastest ways to manifest. But then at the start of the year, I just try to assess everything and I try to come at it from a blank slate from where I am today
Mm,
and see if I can blank slate the future out again. Because a lot of times it's just stagnant goals that we've maybe carried with us for 5 or 10 years are still just kind of
mm,
there. And you're like, oh, I don't know if that's really my thing anymore. So
yeah.
that has helped me to find the next like vision or thing that I'm super fired up about again and really excited for so that it kind of always keeps growing. And then I also always look at it like I'm going to be doing this till the day I die. Like whether
Hmm.
I'm 100, whether whatever, I'm still going to be. So I'm always, I think I always look at it from the perspective is that I'm always growing, but I'm also at the same time always like living it too. And
Yes.
that helps, that
Mhm.
gratitude you just mentioned helps so much because that helps you realize like there were so many days I dreamed of today.
Mhm.
And today I'm taking it for granted. Today I'm just like, you know. So kind
Exactly.
of the
Yes.
combination of keeping both of those in play at all times, I think helps a lot to really feel like every step of the journey is the dream
Hmm.
and that it never is really a destination because the destination is always a moving target. Like
Yes.
it never is
Hmm.
just a thing.
The joy is in the journey. And a lot of
Always.
times, forget I was listening to this podcast and they were saying at the end, and so many interviews that I've had where like you've accomplished this massive goal and while you're doing the goal you're getting like these dopamine hits. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm almost
Yeah.
there, I'm almost there. And then when you're there, you're like, what's next? And
Yeah.
so yeah, really grounding yourself in gratitude and then also figuring out what the next thing is for you, right? Because we're
Yeah.
always growing and evolving.
It's huge because if you don't, the first time I experienced this, it was twice and it was in the same year, is running a marathon because you do the practice runs for 6 or 8 months
Mm-hmm. Wow.
consistently with a group for, every single weekend. It's a huge commitment. It's like a 9 month commitment. Um, and I experienced it then. And then later that year, when my first book came out, which I had been writing for an entire year, pretty much every day for an entire year, and I called it postpartum of a dream. It's almost like a crash after realizing the dream if you don't know what's next. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't thought past just checking that one huge box that you're dying to freaking check, you just crash on the other side of that. And it doesn't feel good. And it doesn't feel at all like you thought it would feel. It's like almost worse. It's really hard to explain. And it's the opposite of what you would expect to happen, right? It leaves this huge
Mm-hmm.
hole in your life because this was something you put so much time into on a consistent
Mm-hmm.
basis, and now it's not there anymore. So that's another reason why I've always done the like make sure annually you have a vision that at the start of the year lights you up. And it's not in just one thing. It's not just one goal I want to do. It's not just like one thing I want to accomplish or whatever. It's in all the areas of my life. Like this is how my life is expanding. These are the things I'm going to be doing. This is how I'm growing so that it is always moving forward and it doesn't just
Mm-hmm.
have like these highs and lows and highs and lows.
Exactly. That's a really good point you brought up. So I've interviewed a lot of athletes, Olympic athletes on my podcast, and they always talk about how they went through severe depression
Yeah.
after their career was over because most of them tie their identity to being the football player,
Yep.
being the Olympic athlete. And so, yeah, because it's like everything just gets ripped away at once. And
Yep.
then you need to figure out what your life is going to look like. So I think it really is important to evaluate every day moving forward
Yeah.
where you want to go.
And it always challenges you to push the limits, right? I mean, you've created so much probably in a pretty short span of time, like in a decade or so. Would you say like the last decade has probably been the most growth? At least it has been for
I would
me.
say the last 5 years, actually.
Yeah, yeah, like so much growth, right? Like realizing so
Mhm.
much of what you wanted, being in the place that you always dreamed you would be at, that it's almost hard to fathom what is beyond that, because you're like, this was my ultimate version. This was like the biggest version I could think of back then.
Mhm.
And so now it's like, okay, well, what is that next big version? And it's okay for me to want that, Like a
Mhm.
lot of people
Yes.
feel guilty about it. They're like, well, I have enough or whatever. And it isn't about that, It is about like I am joyously receiving what the universe is
Mhm.
delivering.
Yeah, and it's who you're becoming in the process, right? I mean, I've got to interview billionaires on my podcast, and I'm so grateful, but it's the person and the skill set and the mindset that they had to develop in order to get to that point. And so
Right.
there's always more. And so
Yep.
that's what makes life exciting. It's not like, oh, I completed this really big goal and then, okay, nothing else.
Yeah, no, it's always growing. What are you working on to that point? What are you working on now? What is kind of your next vision of what you're building and what you're creating?
Yes, I love this question. So I just relaunched my season 4 podcast. I'm actually doing it solo. I previously had co-hosts, and then with that, I'm also rebranding and relaunching my women's
I love
empowerment
that.
group. So very excited about that. We meet every single week. I bring on really incredible people. I definitely want you to come on
Yeah, I'd
to
love to.
coach women, but we have a different topic each month that we do a deep dive into. And it's really just up leveling yourself. It's actually doing the work on the call. It's
Hmm.
not just listening to something, it's actually doing the introspection, doing the journaling, and all of that. So I'm really excited for that to launch in the spring.
Ooh, I love that. I love that so much. And you're so good about asking the questions I was mentioning earlier, your journal on healing childhood drama, just or trauma, sorry. Well, probably both. Mine was both trauma and trauma. But I think a lot of people really struggle with they don't know how to ask themselves the questions to get the answers. It all just
Mhm.
feels like this big blob of like past or whatever the case is, and kind of knowing how to ask yourself tough questions.
Mhm.
You have the answers. Like that's the crazy thing. If you really get a pen and paper, and it has to be a pen and paper, people, like I know I've said this a
Yes,
billion
blue
times.
ink.
It has to be a pen and paper. It cannot be
Mhm.
typing. It does not work. Because the magic of a pen and paper is you will access things you didn't even know you were thinking. It
Mhm.
will answer questions for you you had no idea you had the answer to. And it's just such a magical thing that we're all programmed with. But if you struggle with knowing what questions to ask, grab these journals. Journals are, journals with the prompts, like your manifestation one and the one that I have. I'll put those links in here because they're so important. And that is the work that will help you uncover, that will
Mhm.
help you heal, that will help you manifest. Because all those answers are custom, they're yours,
Yes.
it
And it's
isn't just generic information.
Yeah, it was a living blueprint, especially the healing childhood trauma. There's 101 journal prompts, and it's everything
Amazing.
I had to analyze. It's learning your attachment styles, your
Yep.
primary trauma response, your coping mechanisms, how your love language affects everything in your life. And I was
Everything.
really shocked when I started doing that research and everything. So, yes,
Yeah,
when you
it's
ask really good
crazy.
questions, you get really good answers.
Yeah, it's crazy how much, and I know you talked a lot about love languages and attachment styles, which I really did a deep dive into last year and the year before. And I see love languages showing up in my corporate work all the time. Like we're always talking about like how do we adapt someone's love language in a corporate environment? Because if that's how they are responding to um, something positive, and they have a specific way that they see positivity, or doesn't have to necessarily always be love specifically in romantic love, but
Mhm.
it just it guides you through so much of life. Like if a person responds to verbal affirmations and they don't
Mhm.
get verbal affirmations at work in any way, shape, or form, they're going to feel dissatisfied at work, even if they like the job and they're paid really well. It's just this
That's a
crazy
great
thing. It
point.
has
Mhm.
so much interplay. And I think the more you know about yourself, oh my God, just the better every aspect of your life is. Like do that work, deep dive. do the work.
Yeah, amen to that. I mean, how can you expect other people to treat you and know what you want when you don't even know it yourself? So,
1000%. What is your kind of final piece of advice to anyone listening out there who would like to start manifesting, would like to start, getting more confidence and getting in the rooms that they want to be in and start making the changes they want to make? What's something they could do today? What's your advice?
I love that. So just know that you don't have to be defined by your past circumstances. You can completely transform your life like Sarah and I have. And I would highly recommend just writing out what you want your future to look like and then just start closing your eyes and visualizing that something that's already happened, a goal that you want to achieve, or it could be anything. If you want to get in shape, you want to start meal prepping, if you want to, I don't know, be a guest on a TV show, whatever it is,
Yeah.
write it down and feel those feelings. And I can't tell you how many times I've manifested all of the things I wrote down and I visualized. And it's so magical because you can create your reality. And
Yeah.
when you keep doing the work and you keep proving yourself right, it's just going to give you that momentum to keep going.
It is the best freaking feeling in the world, too. It is, I always say I've never done drugs, but I bet it's a better high because there is
Yes, same
nothing
here.
like it is a full body freaking high, a buzz. Like when you're manifesting and you know that you took a thought that felt insane to you when you first
Mhm.
started thinking about it, and you're actually living it as a real life moment. Girl, there is
So
nothing,
empowering.
nothing better than that. It is the coolest fucking feeling on earth. It's addictive.
Mhm.
It's so addictive.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Well,
Amen.
thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom with us today, Samantha. I've loved this as always. And I will put the links to all of your stuff, including your women's empowerment group information here in our show notes. Everyone go check all of that out. Go subscribe to the podcast, do all the things. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Samantha.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Yes. And everybody, until next time, get out there and thrive.